Nicole Smith from Blood and Iron Martial Arts. Now, recently in HEMA, there's been a lot of talk about safety and safety equipment. So today we'd like to have a look at tools for the job, the appropriate attire for the tools you are using, and when to retire your gear. The first thing we're going to look at is the tools of the trade and making sure that they're safe to use. Now, the example I have here, the rapier. First and foremost, unless your sword has a spatulated or a rolled tip, please put a blunt on it. These are pointy and they can get into all kinds of nooks and crannies, and well, that's just not safe. Now, this can apply to any steel sword. Check your edges regularly. Bashing steel together, eventually it's going to burr up, and if you're not cutting skin, you're going to wind up cutting jackets, and either way, that just sucks. Talking about our tools, we recommend using an appropriately weighted weapon for the activity that you're doing. Doing form work or strength and conditioning with a heavy montante or a full-width, full-weighted sword would be really cool, but we would not recommend sparring with these, as it would not be safe. Now, despite what you might think, no one is 100% of the time. Looking at our safety gear. In choosing our gear, basically we're going to be looking at the drill that you're doing and what you were targeting. If what you're doing is going to be targeting the head, whether it's cutting or thrusting, you're probably going to want a mask and most likely a gorget. If what you're doing is going to be targeting the arms, you might want to consider elbow protection and forearm protection. If the drill targets the leg, hard knees, and perhaps the shins. As you dial up the intensity, you might also want to consider a heavier jacket. Just remember, whatever you're targeting, have the appropriate safety gear. Something else to consider when choosing your gear is what you're going to be using it for. A regular fencing mask might hold up just fine for rapier or single stick, but doesn't do so well with longsword. Choose an appropriate mask rated for the weapon that you were using. Something else to look at, your gloves. Now, lacrosse or hockey gloves would be just fine for lighter weapons, but they would be completely inappropriate for longsword. We recommend something a little heavier. Remember, there are no shortcuts to safety. Tailor your training to the equipment you have. Stay safe. Now we'd like to talk about when to retire our gear. Now, we work with this stuff on a regular basis, and we go quite attached to it, and sometimes it's hard to know when it's time to retire. One of the things I'd like to look at is rapier blades. These get bent repeatedly over and over again, and you can straighten them out to a certain point, but eventually they develop an S-curve. That is when it needs to retire, because that means it's going to snap. And that's a puncture wound waiting to happen. Same thing with longswords. If your tip breaks off, don't put a blunt on it and keep fencing. This is likely to rupture someone's spleen. It has zero flex. Masks. Now, this one should be self-explanatory, but if your mask has got a couple of dents in it, it's probably time for a new one. And gloves? Well, duct tape can only do so much. Keep in mind, people, this is sports equipment. It's meant to be replaced. It's going to wear out eventually. Back in the Stone Age of HEMA, when we started all of this, there wasn't any special gear or equipment designed for HEMA. In fact, I don't even think we had proper faders. Nowadays, there's a plethora of stuff on the market designed just for us. Now, it might not last forever. It is sporting equipment and it will wear out. But remember, it is way easier to replace gear than it is to replace a body part. So stay safe out there.